Here at Beaver Creek's Grouse Mountain today, en route to the Royal Elk Glades. There's over 100 acres of terrain to choose from here, all of which is steep, ungroomed, and very wooded. Persistent stamina is a must in these glades. There are plenty of good lines in these glades, many of which we're already passing right now. But the further you go, the less tracked you'll find the slopes. Today, this was a line that looked pretty solid. So here we are. The first thing you notice when you get into the trees on a day like today is that the snow coverage is actually pretty good. So we're here in February over President's Day weekend. If you're here during the early season, or if you're just used to skiing on the East Coast, you just might not be used to snow coverage like this in the trees. As you can see, we're going through these pretty narrow trees with pretty good coverage. Not really much for my skis to worry about right now. Second thing you'll notice, especially if it's your first time in Colorado glades, is that the trees are pretty narrow. They don't branch out too much. We may have just sideswiped a branch, but it's pretty easy to avoid the trees despite the density here. That's not to say this trail's easy at all. It's pretty steep here. The casual observer may not know Beaver Creek for its expert terrain, but don't get us wrong, this run is very demanding. This line isn't quite as steep as Beaver Creek's Stone Creek chutes, which are marked as extreme terrain on Beaver Creek's trail map, but this pitch is no laughing matter. Parts of this terrain have some pretty bare open spots, like we're seeing here. And now we're going into the trees again. And as you'll see, there's going to be a pattern of open and tree spots throughout the rest of this run. And yes, I said a pattern. There's plenty more to go. This trail is incredibly long, and at this point, we're not even halfway done yet. So the cool thing about being on this part of the mountain is you're pretty isolated here. So Beaver Creek, it's a mountain we've criticized for a pretty commercialized, ritzy vibe overall. When you're in the base, you have all these fancy hotels. There's all these upscale facilities around the resort. But this is just kind of Beaver Creek's zen area. You're just completely isolated. Feels like you're one with nature. Hopefully you can get a glimpse of the backdrop over there. There's just some really striking views. It's just really something special to be here right now. And because Beaver Creek is just a lot more expensive and further out of the way than other resorts that are closer to Denver, there really aren't too many lines here. And on top of that, because Grouse Mountain is really the expert terrain area, because Beaver Creek really tends to attract more families than experts, there are even fewer lines here than in other resort areas. You're still going to have to wait on the busiest days, but it's not going to be that bad. Getting back to the run, looks like we're about 3/4 of the way down here or so. There's just so many different unique paths in these glades, so even if you drop in exactly where we did, you'll have plenty of different adventures to choose from. This path we're on right now, it's a bit more of an open trail to get you down to the bottom. There really isn't too much tree terrain that you need to go in past this point. That's the other nice thing about being around here. You don't have to stick in the trees the whole way down. If you didn't get the memo already, this run is absolutely exhausting. And by the end, it's just a relief to have some open terrain to be able to get yourself down without having to plan out every single turn. So it looks like we're nearing the end here, but it seems like there's one more patch of moguls to go. So maybe this goes without saying, but this trail is your exercise for the day. If you're hitting this trail, you don't need to go to the gym afterwards. Even one run down this could be enough for the average person. So that is a run down Beaver Creek's Royal Elk Glades. There's a bit of a traverse after this. Beaver Creek's got a couple of traverses. They can be somewhat annoying. But if you're the type of visitor who likes long, demanding mogul runs and doesn't want to have to go to the gym after a day on the slopes, a run like this is completely worth it. Just make sure you go later in the season when there's enough snow coverage